Good afternoon. Welcome to this press conference after the NATO meeting of foreign ministers. We'll have the NATO Secretary General joining us remotely from Brussels and the German Foreign Minister here in Berlin. Secretary General.
Good afternoon. We have just finished our first informal foreign ministerial meeting. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend in person due to COVID, but let me start by thanking you, Annalena, for hosting all the ministers for a free-flowing and constructive political discussion among the ministers. Germany is a staunch defender of the transatlantic bond. And at this turning point for our security, it is more important than ever that Europe and North America continue to stand united. Last night, Finland and Sweden updated ministers on their possible applications for NATO membership. It is up to them to decide if they want to join NATO. We will respect whatever decision they make, because all sovereign nations have the right to choose their own path. Finland and Sweden are NATO's closest partners. If they decide to apply, this would be an historic moment. Their membership in NATO would increase our shared security, demonstrate that NATO's door is open and that aggression does not pay. Today, allies discussed our strong support for Ukraine, the further strengthening of NATO's deterrence and defense, and the longer-term implications of the war, including on our future stance towards Russia. Russia's war in Ukraine is not going as Moscow had planned. They failed to take Kiev. They are pulling back from around Kharkiv. Their major offensive in Donbass has stalled. Russia is not achieving its strategic objectives. President Putin wants Ukraine defeated, NATO down, North America and Europe divided. But Ukraine stands, NATO is stronger than ever, Europe and North America are solidly united. Ukraine can win this war. Ukrainians are bravely defending their homeland. To help them to do so, allies have committed and delivered security assistance to Ukraine worth billions of dollars. And over the years, NATO and allies have trained tens of thousands of Ukrainian forces. All of this is making a real difference on the battlefield every day. We must continue to step up and sustain our military support to Ukraine and build on the work of the Ukraine Support Group, which recently met in Ramstein. Ministers also discussed our upcoming Madrid summit. We will make important decisions to reinforce NATO's deterrence and defense to reflect the new security reality in Europe, to further support and engage with like-minded partners near and far, and to adopt our next strategic concept, NATO's blueprint for an age of strategic competition. So, Mr. Baerbock, dear Annalena, once again thank you for hosting the meeting and thank you for your strong personal commitment to our alliance. Over to you in Berlin before we take some questions.
Thanks a lot, and thanks that we can have this virtually, and still all the best. It was more than a pity that you could not join us on today's and yesterday's meeting. Sehr geehrte Damen und Herren, sehr geehrter Herr Generalsekretär, lieber Jens, Lassen Sie mich einmal zunächst persönlich sagen, wie froh wir sind als Außenministerinnen und Außenminister, wie froh auch ich persönlich bin, dass wir an diesem Wochenende hier in Berlin als NATO-Mitgliedstaaten zum Austausch in einem informellen Rahmen zusammentreffen konnten und ich als Gastgeberin die Kolleginnen und Kollegen hier willkommen heißen durfte. Ich habe es heute Morgen schon gesagt, informell ist vielleicht nicht das Erste, an das, was man denkt, wenn man an NATO denkt. Aber diese Zeiten sind andere Zeiten. Und deswegen war das genau das richtige Treffen in dieser wahnsinnig schwierigen Situation. Sehr schade, dass gerade du, lieber Jens, lieber Herr Generalsekretär, hier in Berlin nicht physisch anwesend sein konntest, obwohl ja das ganze Treffen von der NATO ausgerichtet und organisiert worden ist. Mit dem G7-Treffen im Weißen Haus und dem NATO-Treffen jetzt und dann gleich morgen das Treffen der Außenministerinnen und Außenminister der EU haben wir so einen ganzen Gipfelmarathon in diesen Tagen hinter und vor uns. Es unterstreicht, wie dramatisch die Lage nach wie vor in der Ukraine ist. Und es unterstreicht aber zugleich, wie stark wir derzeit mit und beieinander stehen. An diesem Wochenende haben all unsere Beratungen natürlich deswegen unter dem Eindruck dieses schrecklichen Krieges in der Ukraine gestanden. Ein Krieg, in dem jeden einzelnen Tag Menschen getötet, Leben zerstört werden. Das dürfen wir keine Sekunde vergessen. Wir haben sehr umfassend und offen über genau diese Entwicklung vor Ort diskutiert, sie analysiert und besprochen, wie wir die Ukraine weiterhin unterstützen können, was wir in den nächsten Wochen und Monaten tun können, um der Ukraine und vor allen Dingen den Menschen in der Ukraine beizustehen. Wir sind uns einig, dass wir in unseren nationalen Anstrengungen, insbesondere bei der militärischen Unterstützung, nicht nachlassen dürfen und nicht nachlassen werden. Und zwar, solange die Ukraine diese Unterstützung zur Selbstverteidigung ihres Landes braucht. Und auch was die Anstrengungen im Rahmen unserer Bündnisse angeht, bleiben wir am Ball. Uns allen ist bewusst, dieser Krieg wird so schnell nicht zu Ende sein. Der russische Angriff auf die Ukraine, der russische Bruch mit allen Normen des friedlichen Zusammenlebens, insbesondere der europäischen Friedensordnung, das bewusste Zerstören selbst des humanitären Völkerrechts, das ist ein Einschnitt in die internationale Ordnung für die nächsten Jahrzehnte und auch für die Stabilität in den nächsten Jahren. All das hat die Sicherheitslage im euroatlantischen Raum einschneidend geändert und es braucht dafür weitreichende strategische Antworten. Und es hat uns hier in Deutschland und in Europa sehr, sehr deutlich vor Augen geführt, welcher Wert, welche Sicherheit für unser Leben in Demokratie und in Freiheit in der NATO-Allianz liegt. Nach Jahren, in denen es in den NATO-Mitgliedstaaten, gerade auch hier in Deutschland, Vertreterinnen und Vertreter gab, die die NATO als überholtes Auslaufmodell gesehen haben, erleben wir jetzt leider auf die absolut brutalste Art und Weise, warum es eben die NATO, eine Sicherheits- und Verteidigungsunion braucht. Und wir erleben auch, und viele von uns in unseren Gesellschaften zum allerersten Mal, dass Sicherheit, Frieden und vor allen Dingen Freiheit nicht vom Himmel fallen und kein Automatismus auf alle Zeiten sind. Das ist, ich muss das zumindest persönlich sagen, keine einfache Erkenntnis. Das ist schmerzhaft, weil es natürlich so viel einfacher ist, gemeinsam mit seinen Freunden und Nachbarn, selbst wenn man unterschiedliche Perspektiven hat, einfach so in Frieden zu leben. Es ist einfacher für den Alltag, es ist einfacher für Diplomatie, es ist einfacher für wirtschaftliche Beziehungen, aber es ist keine Antwort jetzt. Es ist keine Zeit dafür, jetzt einfache Antworten zu geben. Die NATO ist als Bündnis aktueller und wichtiger denn je. Sie bedeutet für uns alle Sicherheit. Und deswegen ist so gut, lieber Herr Generalsekretär, lieber Jens, dass wir dieses inoffizielle Treffen hatten zur Vorbereitung des NATO-Gipfels dann in Madrid, weil eben auch die Bedeutung der NATO in dieser Zeit jetzt eine ganz andere Rolle spielt. Das ist eine andere Identität und auch die Wahrnehmung der NATO. Wenn wir das jetzt verantwortungsvoll gemeinsam gestalten, dieses strategische Konzept zu formulieren, dann wird die Wahrnehmung der NATO nicht nur in unseren Gesellschaften, in den osteuropäischen Ländern war das ja schon ganz, ganz lange der Fall, sondern auch in unseren Gesellschaften, aber auch weltweit eine andere sein können. Nämlich eine Allianz von denjenigen, die sich nicht nur im Notfall verteidigen wollen, sondern auch können, sondern auch eine Allianz derjenigen, die für Werte und das internationale Recht einstehen. Der russische Angriffskrieg hat das bewirkt, was der russische Präsident immer verhindern wollte. Er hat uns alle, die wir gemeinsame Werte und Prinzipien teilen, viel, viel enger als zuvor zusammengebracht und die Rolle und Bedeutung der NATO in Erinnerung gerufen. Das, was Russland immer verhindern wollte, hat auch dazu geführt, dass jetzt zwei Länder sehr wahrscheinlich der NATO beitreten werden, die das eigentlich vor dem 24. Februar nicht geplant hatten. Wenn nun die Bevölkerung in Schweden und Finnland den Wunsch hat, dass ihre
members of NATO, this is an expression of a fundamental change in our security perception, of a fundamental change in our security, peaceful order in Europe. As I said this morning, ladies and gentlemen, and I repeat this here because I'm deeply convinced of this, Sweden and Finland are not our friends. They are not only our partners. They already have been for quite a long time members of the European family. And this is why they can rely on our fullest support for any decision that they will and may take with an eye to their security. The doors of NATO are open to them, and if they decide to step over the doorstep, we will receive them with open arms. Sweden and Finland are politically and militarily ready for accession. There's no doubt about that. The two foreign ministers who joined us yesterday were very clear on this. They are members of the European Union and the OSCE, and thus are part of our European peaceful orders, and their forces are already integrated into the structures of NATO to a very large degree. Both countries fulfill all standards of NATO, and both countries are already participating in NATO missions. Their accession would further strengthen our alliance. They are practically already members of NATO without having member status, without having a membership card. I know, and we all talked about this yesterday with Pekka Haavisto and Ann Linde, that this is also a very emotional moment for Sweden and Finland. For the very first time, this would bring together all Nordic states under one security umbrella. A development which, because until recently they didn't have a majority for such a decision in both countries I mentioned, would have been unthinkable 6 months ago and inconceivable. It's a moment for the other Nordic countries who already are members of the alliance to reflect upon. The people in Finland and Sweden who rightly say that our political home is the European Union, our peaceful order is based on the Helsinki Final Act, on the OSCE. To those people I would like to say the same is true for us. And it is also true to say that with NATO there is no either or. There is no contradiction here. Membership in NATO is an expression of the implementation of the right to freely choose one's alliance, the sovereign right of any individual nation. And like the European Union, unlike the OSCE, NATO too embodies the primacy of political solutions and represents a rules-based international order. This morning already I was very clear, and our friends in Helsinki and Stockholm, should they decide in favor of joining, which is, I think, not to be excluded quite completely, should they take that decision, we in Germany, we do whatever we can in order to make sure that this sensitive transition phase, from the moment the application has been submitted to its ratification, is as short as possible, so that there is no in-between, no transition or grey phase at all. That, again, was another topic we talked about yesterday in greater detail with our colleagues from Sweden and Finland. And we basically see eye to eye on this. This is why the federal government will proceed along the lines of a fast-track procedure. We will use all means at our disposal available to us, having a cabinet decision at the shortest delay, a call for special sessions of the federal parliament, that is to ensure that this process of ratification takes place quickly, not only is being set in motion, but also carried out quickly, and that the legal foundations are prepared so that we will be amongst the first to ratify. I know that we enjoy, and I'm very grateful for that we enjoy the great support from the members of the Bundestag here. And we hope that in so doing, we will also, in a way, produce traction for the process of ratification of Sweden's and Finland's accession in other member countries of NATO. Quite a few countries have expressed their readiness to also respond quickly. It's not as if we had taken any decisions here, this being an informal meeting, but we agreed amongst ourselves to send out the message to Sweden. Sweden and Finland, if you're ready, we're ready. Thank you, Florian Neuhan, ZDF. Turkey's position has probably also figured dominantly. The Turkish foreign minister demanded security guarantees. Are you ready to comply with these conditions? Have there been certain agreements reached already? How likely do you think it is for Turkey to quickly accept such an application?
Yeah. First of all, I would just like to highlight that when it comes to Finland and Sweden, of course, these are sovereign, independent Swedish and Finnish decisions. They are now in the final stages of their processes, and throughout the process, it has been very important for me and for NATO to demonstrate that we respect their decision-making processes without trying to interfere or to give them advice. We respect their decisions regardless of what the conclusions will be. Then on Turkey, Turkey is an important ally. Turkey has expressed some concerns, and as we always do in NATO, when there are concerns, when there are questions, we sit down, and I'm confident that we will be able to find a common ground, an agreement, consensus on how to move on the membership issue. Because all allies agree that NATO's door is open. Allies agree that NATO's enlargement process has been a great success over many, many years, and also that Finland and Sweden qualify for membership. They are by far our closest partners, have worked with NATO for many, many years. So if Finland and Sweden applies and join NATO, then that will be an historic moment for Europe, for Finland and Sweden, for NATO and for the whole transatlantic bond. It will contribute to strengthen Finland and Sweden, NATO, and also strengthen stability across the Euro-Atlantic area. I have been in contact with Foreign Minister Mevlut. He was attending the meeting yesterday evening, and I expect that we will be able to follow up quickly if Finland and Sweden applies for a membership. When it comes to Russia, of course, we are monitoring closely. We are following very closely Russia's behavior along our borders in the vicinity of NATO territory. And as a reaction to the war in Ukraine, we have significantly both increased our surveillance, our capacity to monitor, but also our military presence in the eastern part of the alliance, including the Baltic region. More than 40,000 troops under direct NATO command, backed by significant naval and air power. So it is clear that we are there following very closely what Russia is doing, and we are also, of course, ready to follow closely if Russia in any way try to launch any kind of hybrid cyber attacks against any NATO allied countries. Then let me add that we are also aware that Finland and Sweden are, of course, concerned about the interim period from when they have applied to all the national parliaments have ratified the accession protocol. We will try to speed up that process as much as possible. Many allies have stated that they will find fast tracks, as for instance Germany has indicated that this can go quite fast. But anyway, there will be a time period between application and full membership. It is clear that Finnish and Swedish membership matters for NATO. We will look into ways to provide security assurances, including by increasing NATO presence in the region, in the Baltic region, in and around Finland and Sweden, of course in close consultation and based on agreement with Finland and Sweden.
Ganz kurz zum Ersten. Genau dazu hat ja gestern das Treffen, wie gesagt, informelles Treffen, wo nur die Außenministerinnen und Außenminister im Raum waren, also sehr vertraulich gedient.
Foreign Affairs present in the room. It was a very confidential meeting and it helped us exchange in a friendly atmosphere marked by trust on these different perspectives. Trust and understanding, cooperation, where you don't necessarily read form papers that have been prepared, but allows for a free-flowing debate where you can exchange your points of views. Thus, I don't want to share in detail with you
man zueinander gekommen ist. Es hat auch direkte Gespräche, das ist ja bereits bekannt, zwischen dem türkischen Außenminister und dem finnischen Außenminister und der schwedischen Außenministerin entsprechend gegeben. Was ich aber sagen kann, dass trotz dieses furchtbaren Umstands, das hat sich ja keiner gewünscht, die jetzige Situation, für uns alle dieser historische Moment in der Luft lag. Wir sitzen da als Außenministerinnen und Außenminister, aber eigentlich sitzen wir ja dort nur als Stellvertreterinnen für Millionen Menschen in unseren Ländern, für Millionen Europäerinnen und für den transatlantischen Raum, die sich nichts sehnlicher wünschen, als weiterhin in Frieden und in Sicherheit und in Freiheit zu leben. Und dieser historische Moment, der lag nicht nur in der Luft, sondern das ist jetzt unsere gemeinsame Verantwortung, dem gerecht zu werden.
We also felt that we have a shared responsibility to live up to that historic moment. 73 years ago, when you look to the fact that the Nordic countries did not in their totality decide to join, but for the very first time now you would have not only two more Nordic countries join,
auch ihre direkten Nachbarn und Freunde aufnehmen würde, und auch das ist gestern Abend noch mal sehr, sehr deutlich geworden.
And this is something we all felt strongly yesterday.
Vile threats from the Russian. There's been talk about annihilating Finland. They've already cut off electricity to Finland. What is NATO going to do to make abundantly clear to the Russians that it's not going to allow states that want membership of NATO to be intimidated?
First of all, Turkey has made it clear that their intention is not to block membership, and therefore I'm confident that we will be able to address the concerns that Turkey has expressed in a way that doesn't delay the membership or the accession process. So my intention is still to have a quick and swift process where we will then sit down with Finland and Sweden if they apply, agree the accession protocol, and then hope and work for a very speedy ratification process in the 30 parliaments. That will take some time. There's no way to prevent that. But the plan is to have this, and that's still my intention, as a process that goes faster than we have seen before. When an ally raises concerns, we have proven over decades in NATO that we are able to sit down and then find consensus, find a way to agree, and then move forward. And that's my intention, that's my plan, and I'm confident that we'll be able to do so also in this case. Because all allies realize the historic magnitude of the moment. This is an historic opportunity we need to seize, and that has been expressed by allies and also discussed yesterday evening. we are ready to sit down with Finland and Sweden and also to address their concerns in this interim period. And as I said, this is partly about increasing NATO military presence in the region, on land, at sea, and in the air, of course in close consultations with Finland and Sweden. We already work closely with Finland and Sweden, for instance, on hybrid threats and cyber threats. We have a center of excellence on hybrid threats in Helsinki. So we have already developed very close ways of working together with them to address some of the threats and challenges they are afraid that they will see more of in this interim period. So we will work closely with them to bridge and to provide assurance measures in the interim period.
Okay, final question, Frankfurt Allgemeine Zeitung.
Thomas Kutschka von der Frankfurter Allgemeinen Zeitung. Eine Frage an die
Addressed to the
Außenministerin.
foreign minister. Until now, NATO described its relationship with Russia as being 3D deterrence defense.
Immer wieder gerade für den Dialog
Germany has time and
eingesetzt.
again
Wie
spoken
viel
out in
kann
favor
davon
of
noch
pursuing a
übrig
dialogue with
bleiben
Russia.
nach
What
dem
can remain
russischen
of that
Angriffskrieg gegen die
approach after
Ukraine?
Russia's war of
Und
aggression against
soll
Ukraine?
aus Ihrer Sicht
And from your
im neuen
point of view, would you
strategischen
say that
Konzept ein
the new
Bezug
strategic concept
hergestellt
should
werden
contain or
zur
establish a reference
NATO-Russland-Grundakte,
to
die
the
bisher
NATO-Russia
ja auch
Founding
diesen
Act,
Dialogaspekt geregelt
which
hat?
has dealt with this aspect of having a dialogue with Russia? There always has to be a dialogue. Even in a brutal world, we need to engage in a dialogue, because then if we were not to do so, it would put paid to coexistence. We, as a Western defense alliance, embody the international order that is a product of everyone agreeing on the principles and foundations of an international order. But we have all have been forced to realize that the OSCE, which was the final forum for discussions, and this is why I highlighted its importance earlier, that even there Russia has in a way bombed that offer for a dialogue, blown it up into air. The Minsk process, which brought together Germany and France on behalf, who spoke and discussed and worked on behalf of all the other countries to avoid such a war of aggression. We also had the OSCE mission on the ground, of which Russia was a member and a part, and it was Russia that attacked this mission on the ground. These are people who were killed because of what happened. The European peaceful order, something in which we not only believe and have believed in, but that we've also been working tirelessly to strengthen, is embodying this idea of having an exchange, engaging in dialogue, and in the true sense of the word, it has been bombed to shreds. So we had no choice but to be very clear as to that we stand fully, not only at the side of Ukraine, but also we are willing and ready to support Ukraine militarily so as to enable them to defend themselves. But nevertheless, having experienced all of this, having experienced that the Russian side has destroyed any format for dialogue, any form of dialogue, has bombed to shreds the European peaceful order, we have continued to use different channels. And I do understand why you're pinpointing Germany here, but there were different actors: the American president, the French president, the German chancellor, the Turkish president, and many others who have time and again tried to use channels open to them. When the moment came that Russia seemed to signal that they were willing to engage, and they talked to the Russian president on the phone. They tried to impress upon him that we stand ready at any given moment, not only to talk, but also to ensure that people are no longer being killed. But in order to achieve that, the shelling, the bombardments have to end. And this is also, by the way, what the new strategic concept of NATO will stand for. It reflects exactly that. It is a reflection of the new reality that deterrence and defense, the ability of NATO to defend itself, is something that plays a different part now from what the situation was like before the 24th of February. We all know that the Russian government has broken international law, has broken any piece of legislation, has violated the NATO-Russia Founding Act, because we referred to that in the second part of your question. And the Russian government has made very clear that that Founding Act, too, has become of no value to Russia. So we have to take note of the fact that this Founding Act has been revoked, cancelled unilaterally by Russia, not by NATO. So we have to realize that the elements of this Founding Act, what was agreed in that document, is no longer relevant or valid to Russia. As I said, it will be reflected in NATO's new strategic concept, and we will thus strengthen the eastern flank of NATO, ensuring not only that the two countries that will probably join NATO are not being threatened, but also to ensure that our Baltic partners and the partners along the southern flank are being protected and defended. Thus, we will continue to make available additional capabilities. This is why the Federal Republic of Germany tries to do whatever it can in order to ensure that every inch of our territory can be defended should the need arise. What will change? What has changed? Well, the tripwire logic, for example, no longer works for just to give you one case in point, because it is no longer going to be decisive whether places that may be occupied can be liberated afterwards. The Russian president has been very clear. We are talking war crimes here, the most heinous crimes committed against mankind, and this is why we have to be in a position to ensure and to defend and to protect every inch of our territory.
I think it's still the translation.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. Then this concludes the press conference. Thank you.
Vielen Dank.